Good morning, everybody. Um, this morning, I'm going to be talking about supplements a little bit in general because I'd come across some interesting news about supplements, an interesting study. But notice down here on this placard thing, it says metabolic strategist. Apparently, that angered somebody out there. They just hated that. I called myself a metabolic strategist. And here's where I fell on that term because we're all a little different. And sometimes you have to do something a little different for some people than you do for others. And so doing the same thing, there's no one size fits all type of, there's a one size that fits most category when it comes to getting better metrics, biological metrics, when it comes to losing weight and all of those things. But there's no true one size fits all. And so I try to do some strategy with some people who need it whenever we're trying to achieve better health. And that's why I chose that term metabolic strategist for myself, because that's exactly what we're doing. So now that said, on to supplements. Supplements are a hot thing right now, and they've been the supplement industry has been trending up for the last several years. I don't know exactly how much money is in it, but it's a lot. And more people from different backgrounds are getting involved. But here's the findings of the study that was a bit concerning to me, and should be to you as well, which was there's a organization, their function is to basically make sure that claims are what they, that the claims that are made by companies are really actually legitimate claims. They reviewed a bunch of Amazon-based sales and supplements, and what they found was that 50% of those supplements did not even contain the alleged or only trace amounts of the alleged supplement that they were selling. So if you got berberine, if you ordered berberine, well, what was mostly in the actual supplement you bought off of Amazon was sugar and some dust and a tinge of berberine, not very much. And most of them couldn't back up the claims that they made about the product. So the supplement industry is not without its flaws, but no industry is without its flaws. So keep that in mind. The supplement industry, on the flip side of this now, there are some companies that are definitely trying to do the right thing and who hold a high standard. And those companies will always rise to the top because the product always works. People actually get results from that product. A placebo effect only goes so far. And so the placebo effect is real, actually. They've studied the placebo effect, and it's a real effect. But it only goes so far. So companies who are basically selling a placebo, well, they're probably going to go out of business after a while. You can hustle a little bit of money, but the companies that have been around for a long time, and I'm going to tell you about a company that's been around for over 100 years, a supplement company, and that the products really work, and it's backed by very credible research and an increasing body of research by some very highly respected institutions in our country. But before we get to that, I'm going to take a sip of this coffee because I'm dying to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, this is one supplement that's healthful, I think, coffee. Completely natural. I've heard all people say all this wild stuff about coffee. It's got mold in it. It's going to make you sick. For the most part, no. Pick a good brand, and the coffee is actually pretty healthful for you by all accounts. Except for those of you who have made it to that point where you can't tolerate caffeine, and then maybe not. But if you can, it's not a bad thing. So right now, if you look at the country as a whole, we're taking in about 40% of our calories in the form of refined carbohydrates, either wheat that's been refined, rice that's been refined, corn that's been processed. I say refined, that makes it sound like it's even better. Processed carbs, including wheat, corn, rice, and of course sugar. Okay. I think about 14% of our calories alone come from sugar. So we've been doing this for a long time. What we saw with this is an explosion of diabetes, overweight, heart disease. Even though we've had all these advances in medicines, the mortality rates are going up, and so we're not doing as well with that as we would like to. Part of that, in my opinion, the real solution behind this, as opposed to pharmaceutical companies making a whole lot more money selling moderately effective drugs to mitigate the effects of poor eating, a better approach is the culture. And when we begin to embrace a culture of health again, and to, at one point we were doing the glorifying being overweight, which I think it's terrible. It's a terrible idea. We were, it's like glorifying illicit drug abuse. Okay. You don't want to glorify just hedonistic eating. You want to glorify being healthy because there's life in that. You feel good in doing that. But if you are not, if that's not part of the culture, then people start to get sick. And I saw a collage. It was a collage of videos talking about influencers who are overweight influencers that were the anti-body shaming, which I don't think body shaming is helpful at all. And that's just plain harassment and bullying. But these were people who were trying to say, no, you need to embrace this. This needs to be a thing. And these people were in their 20s, few in their early 30s. They were all dying. Like there was 6 or 7 of them all died within a few years. So being unhealthy ultimately shortens your life expectancy. That's the way you need to look at this. But for many of us, it's how we look at it, how we frame this behavior, the behaviors that lead to better health in your head. You kind of see it as a chore, maybe something that is being selfish because it's taking you to take that time to invest in yourself, either in doing some exercise or a meal prep, spending a little extra money on the food or the exercise equipment or the clothing or the wearable technology, whatever you are going to use in that effort. Some people have a problem with that because they feel like they're being selfish to their family, investing in themselves. And I want to give you a little perspective on that. One time, Abraham Lincoln was asked, if you only had 4 minutes to chop down a tree, how would you spend the time? He said, I would spend 3 minutes sharpening the axe. Okay. You have a sharper axe, you can get through that tree, get things done a lot faster. So I want you to look at your health that way. If you spend 3 minutes sharpening your axe, making yourself better and sharper, then you can get more done for your family. Plus, you are an example to your family. They learn vicariously through you, and they start to follow along. You're doing a lot more than you realize to help them when you're actually helping yourself. When you're on the airplane, they tell you, in the case of an event, something depressurizes the cockpit, then when those oxygen masks come down, you're to put your own mask on first before you put it on the person next to you. Why? Because you just got a few minutes before your oxygen levels in your brain drop down to nothing and you're unconscious yourself. So put your own mask on and then put the mask on the person next to you. Save them, but you got to keep sharp for yourself first. And so that's the way it is with chronic disease. Chronic disease is not an emergency situation where you're got to dive in front of a bullet for somebody. Okay. It's a slow progressive process. So you have the luxury of some time to take some time for yourself to make yourself better. So if I told you what are the main strategies in eating to help you to get better metabolically, I don't think you would be having an aha moment. If I said, don't eat sugar so much, maybe make sugar a 1 day a week thing, would that be a surprise to you? Or you'd be going, oh, really? Sugar is a problem? Wow, I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Aiken. I didn't know. No, that's not a surprise to you. If I said cut back on the processed carbs, the muffins, the macaroni and cheese, the spaghetti noodles, the French fries, which is really one of the worst ones because fried carbs are the worst carbs. They're the most unhealthy thing that you can eat is fried processed wheat. Okay. You want to make that a once in a while thing. Okay. Tastes good, but make it a once in a while thing. But that's not going to be an aha moment for you, for me to say that. Don't do that. Okay. If I said focus on protein, center your primary calories around protein, health, and then fats, and then add the vegetables. I've been hearing a lot of people poo-pooing vegetables. Plants have poisons in them. They're protective poisons that will, tarnish you and they're cause inflammation. And not really, especially like beans. Okay. Beans are probably one of the most healthy foods that you can eat. They have the fiber combined with the carbohydrate. That's how it is in nature. Whenever there's carbohydrate in nature, there's also fiber. Even sugar cane is the sugar that's in the cane is totally fiber, right? I don't think it would taste very good to eat the cane with the sugar, but you get the idea. Whenever there is carbohydrate in nature, it's accompanied by fiber, and you should be eating them together. And make the sugar a once in a while thing. That's a healthy standard. That's a normal standard. Some people say that's a high standard. No, it's a low standard to eat sugar every single day. It's a normal standard to make sugar a maybe 1 day or 2 day a week thing. Okay. And only for one treat on those days. You don't do it all day, every day. That's where I was before I finally came to the light. I was consuming sugar all of the time, and I was redosing myself. I want to show you something. Let me pull this up. I'm going to pull you guys over here, and let me I'm going to show you what happens with your blood sugars. I want to explain you how this happens. What happens to how do you get sick from eating sugar? All right. There's a sequence of events. I need to probably consolidate all this into one presentation, but let me find this. I got a good little graph here that explains this. Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. Okay. Here we go. All right. Now let me go here. Let's add a scene, media, and screen share, insulin resistance. Here we go. Now, we got to fix this. Oh, that's not even what I want. What is going on here? All right, hang on. Let's fix this. Ooh, something has gone haywire with my system here. Hold on. Hang on. Oh, hip. Wow. Okay. Something is going crazy. Stop sharing. Let's stop sharing that. Okay. Now let's stop sharing again. Okay, now. And let's get that off of there for a second. Now, I'm going to get it. Hang on. I've almost got it. Delete. Okay, one more time. Here we go. Media, add source, screen share, Insulin resistance. Bam. There we go. Now. Whew. All right. So I want you to look at this little graph here. You see this? This is the insulin response to various macronutrients. So the carbohydrates produce a very high spike in your insulin. It's very concentrated, high spike. Protein, not so high and a little slower. And then fat is the least of the responses that you get from eating anything. Insulin is the key to the kingdom. It's the central hormone that is really kind of wrecking us right now. You get control of insulin, you get control of a lot of stuff. There's other things that can throw you off, thyroid, for example. But for now, let's just talk about the insulin, because that's for 88% of us, that's the issue, especially those of you that have fatty liver disease. And by the way, that's estimated up to 45% of US adults over the age of 40 have some degree of fatty liver disease. It was almost twice what we predicted it would be. We thought we were going to be like other European countries, about 25% is what it's usually. And so really it's more like 45%. So what happens when you put this refined carbohydrate in your body, whether it's sugar, whether it's a muffin, it's macaroni and cheese, you're going to have this spike in blood sugar. So insulin spikes to get this blood sugar down. The function of insulin is to get, it's like a key to a door. It unlocks and opens a door on your cells that allows the blood sugar to go inside, where then it's either converted into energy or it's converted to fat, one of the two, depending on how much you're eating. What's the state of your body at the moment? If you need energy right then, it's going to convert it into something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. But if it's satisfied of ATP, you got enough, well, it's going to turn it into fat. So when you eat sugar over and over every day, here's what happens. You eat the sugar, blood sugar spikes, insulin spikes, blood sugar gets slam dunked below the baseline. After from here, eating the sugar to here, where you're below the baseline, is about 90 minutes, 2 hours. What do you think you feel like at this point? I'll tell you what you feel like. Hungry. You're hungry all over again, even though you took in plenty of calories and sugar and carbohydrate right here, you're hungry again. Your body's got ample amount of energy. So what do? Eat. You eat again, because the hunger always wins. So then you slam dunk again, and you keep going through this curve over and over all day, every day. Eventually, this makes your cells insensitive to insulin. If it's like that friend that keeps coming over that you really don't want to come over, and you get a little more resistant to let them in the door, hey, I'm busy. I got to go. I got to go see a man about a dog. Let's do this next week. That's what starts happening to insulin. It's the friend that has worn their welcome out, and it can't get in. It can't make it happen anymore. So what does it do? It comes over twice as often. It comes over 5 times as often. More insulin is what's happening at that point. You have to put out more insulin to get the same job done. High insulin levels is a problem. That's when all your problems with chronic disease starts. The high blood pressure, the obesity, the cognitive dysfunction, the brain fog, ultimately, and the irritability to your arteries. All of this leads to bad paths: type 2 diabetes, stroke, heart attack, and a lot of other things. Dementia, both vascular dementia and Alzheimer's dementia, primarily caused by this process right here. High blood pressure is caused by insulin resistance about 6 different ways. High insulin levels causes thickening of the interior of your arteries. It causes the plaque formation, causes the inflammation in the artery that makes it more vulnerable to forming plaque and thrombus. It increases the output of something called aldosterone from the adrenals so that you're retaining fluid more, which increases the blood volume, increasing your blood pressure. It reduces your ability to make nitric oxide, which is it's that chemical that allows your arteries to relax so that you can bring your blood pressure down to a normal level. With high insulin, you can't make nitric oxide. And I see these people, that's another supplement. We were talking about supplements here a second ago. These nitric oxide supplements, if you're just dosing yourself with those, it doesn't really get to the root of the problem, which is the problem isn't that you're deficient in nitric oxide, it's that you can't make it because you got too much insulin circulating around. You drop your insulin levels down, you can make nitric oxide again. You don't have to dose yourself with some supplement to make it happen. Nitric oxide's probably got a very short half-life on it, so that action on that's not going to be very long. Probably better to just get to the root cause, get your insulin levels down, then you'll make all the nitric oxide you ever needed. So this is what you want your blood sugar curve to look like after a meal. Not this, okay? Blood sugar spike, slam dunk, hungry again. You want this. Not so high of a blood sugar spike, a lingering just above the baseline here so you don't get hungry again in 90 minutes. And you're not taking in any more calories. And so when the glucose levels stay lower, the insulin stays lower, and you start being able to lose fat. You start, the brain fog starts going away. The blood pressure starts coming down. If you were type 2 diabetic, that starts going in reverse. You start to see hemoglobin A1C coming down, fasting glucose levels coming down. Insulin requirements, if you have to take insulin, your insulin requirement starts going down. That's the odd thing, by the way. If you're type 2 diabetic on insulin, what do we treat it with? Insulin, which is the problem. When you start having to inject insulin, it's across the board. Everybody immediately gains about 5 to 10 pounds. Why? Because insulin shuts off the enzyme that helps you to metabolize fat. So it's called a hormone sensitive lipase. And the hormone it's sensitive to is insulin. If too much insulin's around, that hormone shuts off. You can't chew up the fat. As soon as the insulin levels drop, that hormone gets active again. You start mobilizing your fat stores for energy. That's metabolic flexibility there, okay? The biggest component of metabolic flexibility is your muscles. They are the biggest sink for carbohydrates in your body. That's why you want to focus, especially if you're after age 30. Make sure you keep the muscle that you got. And many women are concerned about looking too, masculine or bulky with doing resistance exercise. It's not going to happen. Okay, you're not going to look like a G.I. Jane if you're just doing some resistance exercise 3 days a week. It's not. I don't care if you do it for 10 years. It's hard enough for men to get there. Yeah, honestly. I mean, really. So this is the key, is basically instead of having, this is the curve that is killing the world right here, is this blood sugar curve with the meals. That's what's happened to the foods that are in the grocery store right now. In your grocery store, there's about 45,000 different products on the shelves. It used to be, if you went back to the 1970s, early 80s, there was only about 15,000 products on the shelves. So now there's an extra 30,000 products that have been added. Most of those products are highly processed for convenience and shelf life. If you're in the food industry, the name of the game is shelf life. That means more money for you. The longer that product can stay viable on the shelf, the more chance it can be eventually sold. And ultimately, the less of it you have to make at the same price point. I mean, it's the cost of selling it goes down. So that's that. And that has led to a bunch of this. That processed food, those 30,000 extra products are leading to this. This is what you want. Okay. So how can you do this? Even in the food environment that we live in, how can you produce this curve? There is a way to do it even without having, even if you're not meal prepping every day, you can create this curve here. And one of the keys to that is adding the fiber back in, because that's what's been removed from most of these things. If you look at white bread, what they did, they take the wheat, they take the chaff out of the wheat, which is where the fiber is. Let me see if I got a picture of the chaff. By the way, this is all the stuff that is connected to insulin resistance, all the diseases, high blood pressure, PCOS, infertility, stroke, depression. It can worsen cancer and may increase your risk for cancer, cholesterol problems, sleep apnea, inflammation, joint pain. About a third to a half of the patients that I operate on for elective spine surgery, diabetic. Absolutely. This is the thickening in the artery that I was talking about that happens from too much insulin. Okay. This is what happens to your heart. You get a thickening of the wall of your heart, you know, cardiac hypertrophy. This is where, you know, nitric oxide gets eliminated, so you can't relax the blood vessel like it's supposed to. See, when you have a tight vessel here, you need to be able to relax those vessels. Makes the arteries more inflamed and more prone to forming thrombus and plaque. Now, let me find what I was looking for, if I've got it. I may or I may not. By the way, here's some of the other effects of high insulin. Hair loss, especially in women. This is a woman right here, and they lose the hair in the front, just behind the hairline. You've seen people like this. When you see that, it's almost certainly type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance. These skin tags, very common sign. My dad, you know, in our clinic, a lot of people would come to get these things removed with a knife. You want to know how to remove them without the knife? Cut back on the sugar and carbs, and they will fade away. The skin darkening around the neck, the skin folds, groin, armpits, neck, you get this darkening of the skin. This is a white person, by the way. This is too. That is a sign of insulin resistance. So now there's someone, I had the anatomy of the wheat somewhere here. Well, I must have taken it out. But the idea here, you've got the chaff of the wheat. That's the outer fiber. You take that away. The inner part is just cake. There's also germ, the wheat germ. They take that out too. That's where the nutrients are. And then pharmaceutical companies sell those nutrients back to the bread makers. So when you have enriched bread, that's enriched by Big Pharma. You are enriching Big Pharma to sell those nutrients back to you that they took out in the first place. Does it make sense? To even just leave the nutrients in, right? So let's get back to the main crux of this talk for this morning. How do you get that good curve instead of the bad curve? Let me get back to the good curve, where we can look at this. Well, by the way, this is what happens to those insulin levels here. Over time, exposing yourself to a lot of sugar and carbs, your baseline insulin levels climb. Now, every single hormone that you have has a normal zone. If it's too low, you got a problem. If it's too high, you got a problem. Think of like thyroid hormone. If thyroid hormone is too low, you have hypothyroidism. Energy levels go down. If you have too high of thyroid hormone, that's called Graves' disease or hyperthyroidism. You have a whole other set of problems there. Same thing with insulin. When insulin crosses into the abnormal zone, which is for most of us about a level of 6, fasting insulin greater than 6. Nobody checks fasting insulin. Your doctor is never going to check that on you. You're going to have to ask them to. But if you have a fasting insulin level over 10, you are headed for type 2 diabetes and everything that goes with it. Heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, all of it. So, here it is. I've got it. By the way, here is the anatomy of the wheat grain. So the outer part, the chaff, the inner part, the part we like to eat, it's called the endosperm. And then the germ is here. And what they do is they get rid of the chaff. They get rid of the germ. They make this into bread and then Big Pharma resells the nutrients that was in the germ back to the company. They throw that in the mix, bake it, and that's bread. With bread is missing the fiber. You want those things together, okay? And you're going to like this. This is a little video here that illustrates what happens. When you put out insulin, insulin binds to a reactor or to a receptor. That receptor is like a key on a door. It's going to turn, it's going to start a sequence of events inside your cell that results in a transporter coming to the surface of the cell, opening up, allowing blood sugar to go in. So watch this right here. You'll see the receptor change conformation. Here's the receptor. All of a sudden, a sequence of events inside the cell, the transporter comes to the surface and the blood sugar goes inside. And that whole process gets hampered whenever you are insulin resistant. It just doesn't work right. From the binding part, because there's not as many receptors after a while, they get downregulated. But even if they do bind, that sequence of reactions that's supposed to happen after gets all janky, and it's harder for those transporters to get to the surface. So how do you fix the insulin curve? How do you fix this? Making this into that. Let me show you. There is a system that I've been using now. This is my third year. It helped me initially to fix cholesterol profile, bring my inflammatory markers down. That's probably going to end up being in the future. What we're going to realize is the most important thing, much more important than your LDL number, what we've been calling the so-called bad cholesterol. Basically, if you look at all the studies out there, what it kind of points to is if your HDL is high enough and your LDL is low enough and your C-reactive protein, CRP, which is an inflammation marker, if it's low, then your LDL starts to become more irrelevant. Okay. Now there's a few things out there that are still relevant, like lipoprotein little a. Okay. That's still relevant. Or ApoA. Those are things that are genetic though. And honestly, there's not a whole lot you can do about ApoA or lipoprotein little a. But the LDLC and the LDLP, that's either the concentration or the particle count of the so-called bad cholesterol. If you don't have a lot of inflammation, those things aren't that much of a threat to you, even if they're in the 130s or 140s. So, and these doctors would have you feel like you need to get your LDL below 70, or for sure below 100, but they're talking to the general public on a population basis. And in that case, most people aren't that diligent with their health, and that's the high road. But if you are being diligent, if you're not eating sugar, but maybe 1 or 2 days a week and not much when you do, and you're getting a regular amount of exercise and you're eating, mostly, focusing on meat, getting in enough protein for the day, you're adding vegetables, and whatever carbohydrates you do eat are complex carbs like beans or sweet potatoes, quinoa, ancient grains, black rice, red rice, those sort of things. Well, in that case, and you got triglyceride level that is less than 100, and you got, your HDL is 50 or 60. Well, in those cases, I'm not going to be worried about your LDL too much. I just wouldn't, even if it was in the 130s, 160s. It just doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. So how do you get that hunger under control, though? How do you get the carbs out of your life? If you need it, because we don't all have time to meal prep every day, and we live in a harsh food environment. Average person today is going to see about 2,500 ads for really highly processed bad food. So there's a lot of influence out there. So what do? This has been the system that helped me out. This has been my savior. I'm going to put a little QR code if you want this. And I got a special deal on this for you. It's normally $235, I think, and you can get it for $159, permanent price, subscription price. All you got to do is screenshot your screen right now, and then hold your thumb down over that QR code. It'll take you to the website. What is this? How does it work? It's a very simple system. This isn't like a 10-step thing, very complex. It's very easy. What do? First, you skip breakfast every day. That's what I do. I'm skipping breakfast, and many of you don't eat breakfast anyway. You wait for that first meal. You're going to break the fast at noon, and then you're going to have a second meal at dinner, and then that's it. But to make this more feasible, especially if you have trouble with snacking in between, you're going to drink the tea. This is a tea. It's called Yerba Mate. It's an extract of Yerba Mate tea, and it's going to raise your GLP-1 up so that you're just not so hungry, but it also has a very high insulin sensitizing effect. It makes your cells more sensitive to insulin, helping you bring those insulin levels back down, like we talked about. It also lowers the inflammation in your body. The chlorogenic acid that's in this is what it is. It's a naturally occurring compound. In fact, it's found in coffee, okay, chlorogenic acid. But this has about 10 times the chlorogenic acid as a cup of coffee. And it will absolutely help you to, to get control of the hunger, to bring the inflammation down, and to just stay in control. Then the other one is called Balance. Balance, you drink right before your biggest meal of the day. I drink actually 2 Balance a day. I've got this right here. I order extra Balance. I'm drinking 2 Yerba Mate, 1 in the morning, top of my day. I still have coffee even with it, but then I'll have a second one usually after lunch, or now they've got a decaffeinated version of this. So I sometimes have 1 in the morning, and I'll have 1 at nighttime because I sometimes get nighttime hunger. And so that helps me stay in control after dinner. And then I put this in front of lunch, and I put another one in front of dinner. And what this does is it's got about 10 to 14 different plant sources of fiber, soluble fiber, very high grade. This ain't no Metamucil, okay? This is not a single fiber, useless supplement. This is a pharmaceutical grade supplement that's been studied by the #1 heart hospital in the United States and deemed to be something that could either help you to reduce your statin dose or even replace it altogether for the same effect. So it can definitely help you with your cholesterol numbers. It will help to bring down the inflammation because of the fiber content in it. It will coat the food, turning it into a time-release capsule for glucose, keeping that glucose level low so the insulin stays low. It takes up space in your stomach, forming a gel so that you're just not so hungry after you drink this. You won't eat as much at your mealtime. You won't overeat. That's it. It gives you back control. Between these two, drinking the tea during the morning while you're fasting, and you want to do a 12 to 16 hour fast every day, which becomes very easy to do with this. You're just mixing this in water and drinking it. And then you mix this in water for the meals and drink it. And you just find that you're not as hungry anymore. You're not thinking about food all the time. You can make better choices at the dinner table now. You're not going straight for those chocolate chip cookies at lunchtime or whatever. You're going for the stuff that you should be eating, staying in control. And before you know it, you've improved those labs. You have to go get new wardrobe because your old clothes are too big for you. You're gotten pregnant. If you had PCOS and you were infertile, I always say one of the side effects of this system is pregnancy. You start looking sexier and you start improving your hormonal profile so that you can actually get pregnant again. You're starting to see the numbers at fertility clinics are ticking up. A lot more people having to go on clomiphene to get pregnant. You don't have to do that. You can start backing off a lot of the medicines with your doctor's approval, of course, once those numbers start to improve. If you've achieved what you needed to, with those numbers, and you need a doctor who really understands what's going on with our understanding of cholesterol these days to help you make those decisions. Do you still need to be on a cholesterol medicine if you're on one? And that's become controversial. And usually when something has become controversial in medicine, it means something is about to change. Okay. I've told you those stories. It's just like the hand washing thing. When the doctor that first suspected that there may be an infectious agents on our hands that are causing infections when they were delivering babies. So he did an experiment in the hospital. He said, look, 1/2 of the hospital is, I think it's called Semmelweis, the Semmelweis effect. So So one half of the hospital, he had them wash their hands before they deliver babies. The other half of the hospital just kept doing it the same usual way, no hand washing. Immediately within a week, they cut the infection rate in half on the hand washing side. He said, obviously, there's something on our hands. Well, they didn't change the protocol. They didn't widely adopt hand washing immediately after that. The doctors felt insulted that he would suggest that they were the source of the infections. It took some years before that change happened. And so I kind of feel like that's what's about to happen with cholesterol. And our understanding is some people just don't want to admit that maybe our understanding was wrong. And, all this money and people being put on certain medicines in certain scenarios. I'm not saying all scenarios. There's certain situations where people should be on cholesterol meds. But for a lot of people, this would do you a whole lot better in avoiding heart attack and stroke. Okay. That's all I'm saying. That, a little regular exercise probably would be a better approach and probably more effective in the long run. So if you want to try this, you can try it for 90 days risk-free. They have a 90-day money-back guarantee. Well, I was talking to you before about half of the supplements that you find and encounter on Amazon are not even supplement. I mean, the supplement isn't even in the product. Okay. And then the other ones, when you're not familiar with the name of that supplement, it may not actually hold to the things that it says that it will do. This is one I stand behind as a physician. Okay, this has now been studied by the #1 heart hospital in the U.S., the University of Columbia, another Ivy League institution, the University of Utah. Some very serious scientists have now taken a look at this and done research, and they're finding the great beneficial effects of this. And so this is one you can stand behind. Okay, and there are a growing body of doctors now who also promote this. Give it a go. Do the 90-day experiment. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Invest in yourself now. Start your transformation, your health transformation, right in the middle of the holiday season. Don't wait until Christmas is over and New Year's. Start now. You can actually stand to win now. And if you do order it through my link here, I'm going to be in touch with you. I'm going to send you 3 free guides. One of them is called the Metabolic Reset Protocol. It is let me see if I can find it down here. Metabolic Reset Protocol is wish I hadn't rearranged this entire thing. But the Metabolic Reset Protocol is a eating protocol, not a diet, for you to, no matter what type of food you like to eat. It's a framework that you can operate within in order to stay metabolically healthy. You're going to get the lab cheat sheet. That's the list of labs, 3 in particular, that your doctor probably doesn't even order, but that you need to actually have checked once or twice a year to make sure that you're going in the right direction with your metabolic health. And the apps and wearable technology guide. This is a curated list of apps and wearable technology that I personally vetted that I think are worth your time, that will help you to move the needle on your health, and that can actually help you to determine, are you healthy? So you get those 3 guides absolutely for free. You'll get coaching calls from me directly, and you'll get the system with a 90-day money-back guarantee and a 32% permanent discount. And by the way, you can share your link with a friend. Once you get an account, you get a shareable link, and you get a $10 credit for every time you share that link and someone subscribes on your link. That $10 credit is every single month that person stays subscribed. They are very generous with us. This company they really respond to what we as dietitians and nutritionists and doctors have told them that they should do with the ingredients list, and they make those changes when we ask, and they have absolutely perfected these products over the course of time. Give it a go. And I hope to see your name on my list. Everyone have a good morning.